Thank you, Alain. Good evening and welcome to this week's edition of Virtual Discussions brought to you by Immigrant Community Services, African Immigrant Caucus, and Africa Today. In these discussions, we bring you critical resources and information as our community deals with the COVID-19 pandemic. I am Sophie Cisse, your host tonight. I want to warmly welcome our special guests this evening, Dr. Gilberto Zelaya, Fatma Tabari, and Daniel Koroma. Hello, everyone.
Hello, Sophie.
Our series has 3 segments. We would have begun by recognizing this week's heroes, a segment where we highlight community members who are making a difference. And that one person that we would hopefully get later on is Coach Joel Barkers of You Reach, I Teach Basketball Academy, who is leading the way and doing amazing work in our community. We also have Dr. Gilberto Zelaya, Dr. Z as we call him. And on this segment of the program, we will feature voter information. Dr. Zelaya is with the Montgomery County Board of Elections. I am pleased to welcome Dr. Z.
Good afternoon.
Well, Dr. Z, we all know him as Dr. Z. His name is Gilberto Zelaya, is the Community Empowerment Public Information Officer between the Montgomery County Board of Elections. He is responsible for coordinating community relations and outreach with an emphasis on compliance with Montgomery County's Spanish language requirements under Section 203 of the Voting Rights Act. Prior to joining Montgomery County, Gilberto served as the Epidemiological Program Officer, that's a big word for me, at the Self-Reliance Foundation, developing and implementing mobilization efforts throughout Africa, Latin, and North America. He currently resides in Clarksburg, Maryland, with his wife, Karen, of 16 years, and sons, Sebastian and Julian. I want to welcome you again, Dr. Z.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. As we all know, the Maryland primary was scheduled for April 28th, but got moved to June 2nd due to COVID-19. There have been many changes surrounding this adjustment due to COVID-19. We would like you to walk us through what these changes mean, what we should expect.
Yes, thank you so much for having me today. As you mentioned, Sophie, the first thing is that Governor Hogan, under proclamation, moved the original presidential primary date from April 28th to the 2nd of June because of COVID-19. In addition, because of the public health pandemic, we will not be implementing early voting as we would historically do. And we have consolidated from 238 election day precincts to 4 vote centers on the 2nd of June. Because of the issues with COVID-19, every single voter in Maryland will be mailed the vote by mail ballot. I know, Sophie, you shared with me that you received yours today.
Yes.
So that's good news. So I ran to my mailbox before joining you tonight, and I did not receive mine yet, but I know that I will soon. So I'm asking everyone to be patient with us. But look in the mail, and this is very important, this seal here, that's the seal that states that this is official documents from the Maryland State Board of Elections. And once again, because of COVID-19, we encourage every single registered voter to vote by mail, and we're going to go through the details of what that means.
Great. That's great information that you just shared with us. I know we'll be getting some questions from viewers as the program progresses. In the interim, I understand the early voting would be June 2nd. Is that right?
So we will not implement early voting as we
Okay.
historically have.
Okay.
So it's going to be 4 vote centers on June 2nd. And so in your absentee vote by mail packet, you're going to have some bits of literature, which I encourage all of our voters to review and to read. As you mentioned, everything is in English and Spanish, but it has all the literature information about the vote centers, where you could deposit your ballot. We highly encourage that every single voter deliver it via mail because we're covering the postage paid. We're covering the expense for the return mail. So you don't have to worry about fumbling through your purse or wallet or looking for 55, 65 cents. We will cover that cost. It's going to be mailed to us first class. In the packet that you will also have, depending on your party affiliation, the ballot. And what's important to note is that in Maryland has closed party primaries. What does that mean? If you happen to be a registered independent or unaffiliated, you will get to vote for the Board of Education, such as this. And what's important is for those who are unaffiliated or independent, you're going to get one card stock ballot. And only on the front side will you be able to vote your corresponding ballot as an independent, unaffiliated voter. For individuals who are registered Republicans, you will have one card stock, okay? And it's only on the front side that you will vote for specific contests, whether it's representative for your congressional district, circuit court, Board of Education, or individuals for the National Republican Convention. If you happen to be a registered Democrat, this is a different nuance. You will get a 2-page ballot, but it's double-sided, okay? It's a longer ballot, so it's 2 pages, double-sided. So if you're a registered Democrat, you'll get 2 pages, and remember it's double-sided. If you're not affiliated or Republican, you will get 1-page ballot, and it's front-sided. It's only one-sided. Please use a black or blue ballpoint pen. Do not use a pencil. I know that we are working from the dining room table like in my family. Do not use a crayon. Do not use a marker. Do not get creative. And please do not sign your ballot because you have the constitutional right to vote a secret ballot. And if you sign the ballot, you're going to nullify your own ballot by accident. So only fill in the circles. Follow the instructions that appear on the ballot. If it says vote for 1, vote for 1. If it says vote for no more than 4, you could vote 4, 3, 2, 1, even 0, but don't vote for 5. Lastly, we have a kaleidoscope of beautiful languages in our community, and I know the African diaspora is extremely diverse, and we recognize that not everyone speaks English or Spanish. Right. And so let's say someone speaks Arabic or Amharic or French. And so in the documentation that you will receive something called Certification of Person Assisting Absentee Voter. Once again, if you assist someone in your household, a loved one, a grandparent, who's not comfortable reading or voting on an English or Spanish ballot because it's bilingual, then that individual will assist that voter, and they will need to submit this sheet of paper with your ballot. The voter has to sign. Plus your corresponding ballot, and you would submit it in the envelope that's provided to you by the State Board of Elections. Once you stuff this, please put a piece of Scotch tape or wet the envelope. Do not lick it. Please, please do not lick it, okay? Use water or tape. Once you inserted your ballot in your voter assistant form, if it's needed, make sure you sign the voter certificate or the voter oath. Because when we receive this at the office, if we don't see a signature, your printed name, and the date, we will call you and we will make arrangements for you to come to the Board of Elections. Because without your signature, we will not count this ballot. Because we want to make sure that the voter who voted this signs this. So it's critical. It's very important. And once again, what you could do, which is very easy, these cell phones are very powerful. You could text the word box, BOX, to 77788, and it's going to give you a link to United States Postal Service, and you will put your address or zip code, and it will give you the closest post office to your home address. And the goal is for you to mail it as soon as possible. Please do not wait. Additionally, on the 21st of May, we will have drop boxes around the county to facilitate voters to return that ballot to our office. But as Sophie mentioned, she got her ballot today, so I will assume that she will mail it back tomorrow, and then she could post it and put it in the post office, and we would receive it at the office so we could count it.
Absolutely, Dr. Z. Thank you so much. That was chock full of information. I'm glad you touched on those who may need help in their households, because that was a question that I was going to follow up with. Yes. What about those who do not speak English or speak Spanish or read or write Spanish? What kind of support would they get? I'm very pleased to hear you say that they can be offered assistance in their homes, and that assistant, however, would need to attest to having helped that individual fill out their ballot.
Yes, correct.
And it is important that the person that filled out the ballot also certifies before they mail in the ballot.
Yeah, only the assister will sign and fill the information that they branded assistant to the voter.
Right.
But the voter will also sign that assister form, but the voter is the one's going to sign the return envelope.
The return envelope, right. Yes. Very good. Well, thank you so very much. Are there any parting words, anything that you want to leave the audience with before we bid you?
Yes. So two quick questions. You will notice on your ballot that the date says April 28th. Remember, that was the original date for the presidential primary in Maryland. There was not enough time to reprint these ballots. So June 2nd is the original date. But you have to keep in mind, we will still scan this because there's these markings on the ballot, and these Scantron bubbles is what gets counted. So please do not ignore the fact that it says April 28th. The election is June 2nd. This is a legitimate. And lastly, we will have 4 vote centers in Montgomery County June 2nd, and that will be for the Praisner Community Center, the Silver Spring Civic Center, the Germantown Community Center, and Bower Park Activity Center in Gaithersburg. But please, we highly recommend that you vote from home, because to avoid long lines, imagine you have 220 people waiting in line, plus 6 feet distancing between each voter. That line alone is going to be a quarter of a mile long. So please vote from home. But if you need to go to the 4 vote centers, we will be there to serve.
Thank you very much. So we all heard Dr. Z. Vote. We are strongly encouraged to mail in our ballots. The county does provide these 4 voting centers on June 2nd, but to try to avoid the long lines, you are strongly encouraged to fill out your ballots, put it in the envelope, and mail it in.
Yes, please.
Once again, thank you so very much, Dr. C, for coming online with us tonight to share that valuable information with the voters.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we welcome our second guests, Fatima Tabari and Daniel Koroma. They are with the Democratic Party, and they want to ensure that everyone who wants to vote can do so. Fatima Tabari is chair of the Maryland Democratic Party Continental African Diversity Leadership Council, and Daniel Koroma is District 20's Montgomery County Democratic Party Central Committee representative. Fatima is currently the chair of the Democratic Party's Continental African Leadership Council. She was appointed in 2019 by then Maryland Democratic Party's chair, Maya Rakamo Cummins. And Daniel Koroma, the Honorable Daniel Koroma, represents Legislative District 20, which includes White Oak, Tacoma Park, and Silver Spring in the state of Maryland. His work in the Montgomery County Democratic Party involves advocating for voting rights and economic justice for individuals and small businesses. Fatmata also runs a practice. She's an attorney, and her practice is in Silver Spring, Maryland. I will start with Fatmata Barry, for her to tell us a little bit more about herself and to also tell us what our viewers what is the Maryland Democratic Party Continental African Diversity Leadership Council all about. That was a mouthful. I'm glad I'm able to put it out there. Fatmata, welcome, and please.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Africa Today, Immigrant Community Services, and African Immigrant Caucus. It's so great to be here with my brother here, Daniel Koroma, and the wonderful Dr. Z, the man who gets things done. Thank you so much for being here with us. And thank you, Auntie Sophie, for the nice introduction. So the DLC, Continental African DLC, basically is there to ensure that the African immigrant community in the diaspora in the state of Maryland are aware of the Maryland Democratic Party, are engaged civically, are able to participate in the electoral process. So our position is to help the community learn more about who is running for office, have people learn more about how to register to vote, where to register to vote, and to make sure that they come out to vote, and to make sure that at the end of the day, their voices are heard and they are able to be full participants in the electoral process here in the state of Maryland. So that's the basic role of the DLC, African Diversity Leadership Council. And we have several. So you have the African American, you have the Latino, you have the LGBTQ, plus you have the Asian Pacific, you have us. So there's several. You have the senior, you have the women who are, so this group, this is to target certain groups who are normally underrepresented within the electoral process. Okay. And what the Democratic Party did in the state of Maryland was to create this to make sure that these groups get the opportunity to be heard and make sure that they are, we reach out to them as a party to make sure that they are aware of what the electoral process is and become more involved in it. So this is for, of course, the Democratic Party. And my job as chair is to bring other people involved or get other people involved in it and try to get more involvement of the community within the electoral process in the Democratic Party and in the state of Maryland. So that's basically what it is.
It sounds like the council does do a lot. And where is it located? Is it in one central place, or is it strewn throughout the county?
So it's statewide. So we cover the entire 23 counties within the state of Maryland. Mm-hmm. It's not located in any particular place per se. We used to have, of course, our meetings in Annapolis, but now everything is virtual. Mm-hmm. But because it's Annapolis, so, but it's the entire state. So membership basically is open to all Democrats who are who live in the state of Maryland, and they're registered And so that's basically it. And be interested in the values of the Democratic Party and be a registered Democrat in the state of Maryland.
Okay. Could you share with the audience what projects you have been involved with in your role in the Democratic Central Committee?
Who, me? Oh, well, I don't have a role technically in the Central Committee. I'm an area coordinator for the Montgomery County Democratic Party.
That's what I
So
meant.
in other words, as an area,
That's what I meant. Yes.
So as a area coordinator, I'm not in the Central Committee, but I oversee different precincts within the county. So in other words, work on making sure we have volunteers who would be willing to work the polls during election time. Mm-hmm. Now it's different, obviously, because of where we are now for this election. So normally what would have happened would be that I would be scrambling to make sure that I have all my precincts covered. So I oversee about 6 different precincts, and to make sure that it covered all day long throughout election days, early voting, and on the election day itself. So that's my job as area coordinator. So to make sure that we have what called precinct chairs and vice chairs and all those people covered within each individual precinct within your area as an area coordinator. And just making sure that the voters are aware of where to go, making sure that when they come to the polls, they get the information they need to go in and vote. So that's our job, to make sure it's covered and the Democratic Party is represented at the polls during election time as the area coordinator. That's about all. That's what I do.
Well, you cover a lot of ground. That is well, I applaud the work that you do. And now I would like to know how people can contact you or any of the area coordinators to participate.
Okay. So you can call me. People can call me if they're interested. But I think Daniel will probably cover more of the Central Committee policies and rules and all that. Mm-hmm. So because you have to apply, then the application doesn't come to me, it comes to them. They decide and pick who will be like precinct chair. However, as area coordinator, I can recommend people to be my precinct chairs and vice chairs, and which is a lot of times is what we end up doing because, you'll be working with that person. But if you go to the Montgomery County Central Committee website, you will find all the information you need there. But I'm sure Daniel will cover it at an even more detailed way. But one of the things I wanted to talk about, if you don't mind, is the well, I'm not sure if I can, or there's a issue about the delegate process, because right now we have situation going where June the 2nd, people are going to be voting for a delegate, and I want to make sure people understand what that means when they get their ballot and they have to vote for delegates, to understand that part. So it's the Democratic Party delegate. It's different from somebody being your delegate in Annapolis. So that when people see it, they're not confused. So these are people who are basically, you're voting for them to be a delegate for a particular candidate. So somebody will be running as a delegate to be a delegate for, say, Joe Biden. And you get to vote for them in your district to determine if they should go to the convention, which would have happened in July. But so that's how it works. And those delegates vote at the convention for their candidate. And the state of Maryland from the DNC got 117 convention delegates and 8 alternatives. Quite a few of those go to the leadership. So the rest of them are the ones who get voted on. And that's where the public comes in, or the Democrats, registered Democrats are the only people who can vote for that, not everyone. Registered Democrats can vote for those delegates. So if you see that, if you see posts on Facebook about delegates, that's what it means. Because there have been a lot of people putting things out about that, just so there can be some clarity, so you can understand. When you see that, you are supposed to vote for the person to go to the convention and vote for their candidate, because it's at the convention that we decide who is going to be our Democratic nominee for president, to run for president in November. So that's why you would hear they say the presumptive nominee when they're talking about Vice President Joe Biden, because he's not yet the nominee until we get to the convention. And at the time of the convention, the amount of delegates a person gets determines if that person is going to be our Democratic nominee. Can determine. Can determine. Let's put it that way. It could change depending on how many delegates come out of the woodwork.
Right. Well, thank you for that information. This session is to bring clarity to the processes that the constituents are to engage in. So any information that any of you have that would help us understand the process, to understand what it is we will encounter when we're voting, or whatever information is out there, would be helpful to all of us, really. So I thank you for sharing, for bringing that up and sharing what that means to the electorate. So I heard you say that to be part of the council, you would have to apply. Is that correct? To be an area
so to be an area coordinator or to be a precinct, or be a precinct chair or vice chair, there's an application process that you have to go through. Okay. So you have to fill out an application and turn it in, and that's how we choose who the precinct officials are for each district. So that's about it.
Okay. Well, that's good. Again, I thank you for bringing that to us. And Alain, I was wondering if we had any questions from the audience for either Dr. Z, who is still around with us, or Fatmata, before we get on to Daniel Koroma. No? All right. Daniel, for our viewers, what is the Democratic Central Committee and what is the role of its representatives?
Well, first I want to say thank you to all the organizations that put this together. Thank you to the panelists who just spoke before me. I believe the work that everyone is doing right now is so critical because, as you know, we have a participatory democracy here in the United States. And as I usually say, which means that if you're not at the table, it means you'll be on the menu. And you don't want other people making a decision about your future. And that's the reason why not only I chose to be part of the Democratic Central Committee, and in terms of what we do, so we are elected officials in the various districts here in Montgomery County. Mm-hmm. And our role is to run the Democratic Party's affair in Montgomery County.
Right.
And so as Fatmata made reference to earlier, we work very closely, not only before elections, but on a year-round basis with all the precincts organization. In fact, they are the lifeblood of the Democratic Party. Without the precincts organization, they're all volunteers. So even when you apply as a volunteer, we ask questions to determine your commitment, not only to the party, but also to the process of democracy. And all of us know, many of us who are immigrants know the importance of democracy, because some of us, that's the reason why we're here, because they may have chased our family members from our home countries, and now we're here, and this is home. And it's not an either-or proposition. It's not an either-or choice. We are as Americans as we are, maybe Africans or, Middle Easterns or Latin Americans. The question is, why should we always get involved? And I was talking to someone recently and said, well, if there's any time that question, anyone has any type of, in terms of, concern how to answer that question, this year there should be no question at all of why we all need to participate. Because not only, we're talking about our health, right? All of us are locked in right now because of COVID-19. Our health depends on us participating in our democracy. That's why we're voting by mail. Recently, I was on the Washington Post because I was fighting for my district. Because can you imagine, Auntie Sophie, many of our, of our frontline workers, the folks who work in the healthcare, industry, the folks who work in the grocery stores, who live in Montgomery County, majority live in our neighborhoods. Right. And they did not want us to vote at the recreation center that is very close to our house. And so the Washington Post did that story, and it actually called me back recently and said, well, Daniel, it seems like with COVID-19, everybody's going to be voting, from their homes. I'm like, yes, but the thing is that it should not take coronavirus to basically get people to vote from home. We should make voting easy. That's what democracy is all about. So I'm, again, happy about the work that I do in the Democratic Central Committee. I'm happy that I've worked with, Dr. Z and Fatmata and many of the residents here in Montgomery County, but more specifically District 20, which is the place I represent, to ensure we can expand the voting opportunity. And if there's a way to expand that right now, it's the vote by mail, because you, at the convenience of your own home, you can literally fill out your ballot, and then you don't have to even pay. You can take it to the mailbox and drop it in there. And that's why I'm really excited about this. All of us, there's no more excuse, right? There's no more excuse about, oh, you know what? I work on Saturdays. I work on the weekends. There's no more excuse about, well, you know what? Who's going to babysit my kids when I go to the polls to vote? There's no more excuse about long lines. Right. All of us now can vote.
Right. That is so very true. And the fact that all of you on tonight work so hard to safeguard the interests of our communities, to ensure that we are able to vote without hindrance, just speaks volumes. Therefore, it behooves us all to make sure it is postage paid. The ballot comes with an envelope that's postage paid. Just stuff all of your ballot in there, and it goes back to where it needs to go. Absolutely. Thank you so very much for that. So the primary elections are just a few weeks away. We are voting. We are being encouraged strongly to vote by mail. There will be polling stations, 4 of them in Montgomery County, come June 2nd. What has the Central Committee been doing?
Sure. So let me just be clear that all the votes that we will do, and Dr. Z can correct me if I'm wrong, will be through it. After filling out the ballot, we will get the opportunity to drop it into the mailbox.
Right.
So there's no one that's going to be standing in line, to my knowledge. Is that correct, Dr. Z?
Correct. So
that's right.
So if individuals do not mail it in and they wait until the 21st of May, when we've installed the official Board of Elections drop boxes, they're going to be under surveillance. You drop it in, and we will have staff every day to empty that deposit box. Mm-hmm. But keep in mind, as Sophie noted, she received her ballot today. Today's the 13th. Why wait another week to mail your ballots and wait until the drop boxes have been installed? We're covering the cost of the postage. Just mail it back. And one thing I need to also touch really quick, especially for those individuals who are unaffiliated, if for whatever reason you want to vote a party ballot, say a Republican or Democrat, Okay, you could update your voter affiliation, your party affiliation for the primary, and you could switch back to independent for the general. It's up to you. You have the right. And another thing, really quick, I want to squeeze in, especially for our 17-year-old young voters. In Maryland, you have to be 16 to register to vote and be a U.S. citizen and live in Maryland. However, if you have a son or daughter, a grandchild, a nephew, a neighbor, a brother or sister that's 17 years of age today, but will turn 18 by November 3rd, which is the general election date, that 17-year-old could vote in the primary. And then what will happen is we will also afford them the opportunity to vote as an 18-year-old. But you must turn 18 before November 3rd, so a 17-year-old could register and vote in the primaries. And that's really easy. So all you have to do is text the word vote to 77788 or go to our website at 777vote.org and you could download the application from there.
So it's text to 77788.
88. The word vote.
Vote.
That is correct.
Vote.
So
yes.
that information is not only, critical, but also there's also same-day registration, right, for you to vote as well. So which means if you've never voted before, right, in the state, you can actually register to vote by texting to that site as well, and then you can also register. And so these are all the opportunities that have been open that we on the Central Committee, what we've been doing, we've been not only collaborating with the Precincts Organization, but also other organizations, because within the Democratic Central Committee, we also have various clubs, many of the clubs that we partner with, and these clubs used to have breakfast meetings, but now most of those meetings are now virtual. Right. In fact, we just finished our town hall series with all the elected officials from Annapolis, where we went by district, every district in Montgomery County, and we hosted the delegations up in Annapolis to do a town hall so they could give us a legislative update on the laws that they passed and the things that they worked on this past legislative session. So, but in everything we do, we're making sure that we're informing people to register to vote. We're also educating people that, you know what, Maryland has a closed primary. So which means if you are a Republican, you can only see the candidates who are Republicans on your ballot. If you are unaffiliated, you will not be able to see the Democrats or the Republicans. You would not be able to see them at all. In fact, I got a call not too long ago from my mom. She's like, "Hey, I feel like something is fishy. Somebody may have changed my party affiliation." So I told her, I said, just make sure you again go to the Maryland State Board of Elections website and check your registration. Right. Don't forget, you can check your registration just to make sure that you are active, and you can also switch your party affiliation, again, just for the primaries if you want to vote for a Democrat. I happen to be a Democrat, and not only that, a few more years from now, I will be on the ballot, right? So if somebody wants to vote for Daniel Koroma, you have to be a Democrat for you to see Daniel Koroma on that ballot.
Fantastic information. Audience, vote, fill your ballots, mail it in. If you miss mailing it in, there would be bins stationed around the county where your ballots will be collected. There will be voting on the 2nd of June?
Yes, we will have four vote centers. 4
vote centers. And you can imagine the long lines you're seeing at the grocery stores right now. On June 2nd, you may not want to stand in line that long. So again, you're being strongly encouraged to fill those ballots, put them in that self-addressed envelope, postage paid, and mail it in. Got it? And remember to use a black pen when you fill your ballot. All right. So Daniel, back to you. What more can we expect to hear from the Central Committee after the primary?
So after the primary, our goal is to really get everybody together. We know that, during the primary session, and again, that's the amazing thing about democracy here in America, is the fact that you can choose any candidate during the primary. I mean, you can choose, especially this is a, presidential year. So we had many people who were supporting, many of the amazing and qualified candidates who ran under the Democratic Party. Mm-hmm. Well, the goal is that once we nominate our nominee, right, mm-hmm. not a presumptive nominee, once we have, that candidate, our goal is to bring everybody together to say, you know what, we need to make sure we turn out our base, but also we need to make sure that those who believe in us as members of the Democratic Party, but also our candidate to vote, for us. I used to say that, people would choose sides based on their interest or also based on, their preferences and priorities. Mm-hmm. But the election that is to come, Auntie Sophie, it's one that is so critical because, as I say, not only our healthcare is on the line.
Yes.
Our own lives are on the line.
Yes.
Our children's lives are on the line. I mean, there has not been any time in American history where the election is so consequential compared to the one that we're about to face. We're talking about policies around immigration.
Yes.
Policies around economic justice. Right now, we're talking about the health crisis. We all know once the health crisis starts to subside, there's an economic crisis, and some of the things we're hearing about,
yep.
right? It's going to be even greater than the 2008 recession. Mm-hmm. Some people are saying it's going to be great. It's going to be almost like the Depression. Now, I was not alive during the Depression, but I remember when I came to America, when they used to show pictures of people standing in line for food. I'm like, mm-hmm. Are you kidding me? In America, nobody stands in line for food. But guess what, Auntie Sophie?
We're seeing
I've started realizing that. I've started seeing that here in America, people are standing in line for food.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I mean, we need to elect someone. Well, I'm a Democrat. We need to elect someone who has an experience, right? So Vice President Biden is who I'm supporting. He was working with President Obama during the recession. I know the things I went through here in Montgomery County during the recession, mm-hmm. and how difficult it was for marginalized communities. And some of us who are immigrants, right? We were the first to be fired, even though we were the last that was hired in our jobs. So the question is, who has been tested to bring the economy back? Mm-hmm. And if you ask me, Joe Biden is that person because I saw exactly what they did. So not to go too far, all I'm saying is that we really need to make sure all of us work together, all the viewers of this show, mm-hmm. and everyone who believes that we really need someone who is not going to, is not going to cause more problem, for all of us, but somebody who can say, you know what, how do we make sure we bring the economy back? How do we make sure we bring the things that are important to the grassroots level? And that's why I think this election is so important. And I'm asking everyone to, again, no matter who you're voting for, but just vote. Make sure you vote this election because it is so important.
Oh, that is your franchise. Voting is our franchise.
There were people who died for that right for us to vote.
Exactly.
Many African Americans died in this country for us to get the right to vote. We cannot sit, well, we can sit at home, but the only thing we can vote now, right? So before you can't say you can't sit at home and not vote.
Right. No more excuses.
No more excuses. I mean, the ballot is coming to you and you don't have to pay for it to go back to the, to the election, to the Board of Election.
Exactly. Before I come back to you, let me see if Amata has something to add to this conversation.
Sure. Yeah, just very quickly. I want people to just realize the environment we're living in right now. Mm-hmm. So when you're thinking about who you're voting for or whether you will even cast that vote, consider the fact that we have 9 justices in the Supreme Court. And of those 9 justices, 5 are conservative justices, and we have 4 that are not. Consider the fact that the policies that are coming down right now that affect us whether we are women, whether we are people of color, whether we are Muslim like myself, whether we are immigrants, those policies coming down, or, whether we are people who may not necessarily, people who they would term as disabled. Those policies coming down many times end up in court. And when they end up in court, they become finalized by the decision that's made by the higher court. Mm-hmm. Before we get to the Supreme Court, we have to get through the lower courts.
Right.
So regardless of what the state courts decide, we have to go through the federal courts. And right now, the federal courts are being packed by people who, for all intents and purposes, would love to take us back in time to when we could not do what we're doing right now. Mm-hmm. You have a Latino, you have Africans here having this conversation about voting and having the right to vote and having their civil rights. That can be changed in a dime if we are not careful. I don't want to sound like end of the world, but I want people to realize where we are as a nation and to understand the ramifications of not voting in this election. Mm-hmm. We have so much happening right now, and things that are happening that harkens back to a time when Black people did not have the rights that we have now. And that's just our reality right now. And people are feeling more emboldened to say and do certain things that they otherwise would not have felt emboldened to do. And in order to change that mindset, you need to make sure that who you put in office to take over not just the White House, but the Senate, the House, the General Assembly, whatever here, and your local and school board. School board. Please do not forget, the school board is who decides who teaches your child, what they're teaching your child, and those are extremely important. And the information that Dr. Z has given us is you cannot quantify that information because it goes to the heart of the decisions that we have to make as a people, and we have to make sure that at the end of the day, we use that information well. And with Dr. Z being here, and we know that we have a lot of immigrants who will do these ballots. Can I ask Dr. Z a question?
Yeah, please.
Please go ahead.
So what if, because a lot of us are immigrants and a lot of us do these things, and some people are elderly. What if you make a mistake on your ballot? Can you get another one? And if you can, how long would it take for you to get another one? And how can you get another ballot if you make a mistake on that ballot?
So great question. Of course, we're only human and errors occur. So in case you did use a crayon or you made multiple selections, you're only supposed to select one or two, or you spilled your morning coffee on your ballot. You could call our office at 240-777-8550, 240-777-8550. And we have staff and they will assist you, and you could communicate to them that, my dog ate my ballot, I misplaced it, I spilled coffee on it, what should I do? Then we will issue you what is called a second issue ballot, and we'll mail it to you as soon as possible. Now, let's say it's, May 28th, and it's at the last minute, a couple more days is June 2nd. Then what we could do is email you, make a web delivery request, and we can email you your ballot. It's a little more tricky because you have to get a password and a login from the Maryland State Board of Elections. You have to print your ballot on a regular 8x11 at home. You have to have a printer and a toner. You have to provide your own envelope. You have to pay your own postage, and you would send it back to us. If you do mail it without postage, we will cover the expense, but a lot of times What's important is this particular seal on our ballot. This is the official election ballot. And remember, now there's high-tech, high-velocity equipment that passes the equipment. And when they take this image, it forwards it to our office. But if it confuses it with an ordinary bill or a water bill or a letter to your loved ones, it may not make it, and it may go back to your home address and it says a yellow sticker says postage needed, right? Mm-hmm. And so by all means, take your time, make your selections, use a pen, blue or black, and do your due diligence and mail it back. But in case you make a mistake or you spill coffee on it, call us and we will do everything in our power to ensure that you get your second issue ballot. But remember, only mail back that second issue ballot. We have voters who may be elderly or may have issues. They mail a ballot, they don't remember if they do, and then they call our office again for a second issue ballot. And we do some investigation and we'll call the voter to make sure that it wasn't by mistake. Sometimes you have twins or junior and senior, and mistakes happen, and we will call and we will make sure. But if there's malicious intent in trying to vote twice, we're going to forward your name to the state's attorney. But we're going to assume we will do in our power everything to help you. Remember, full disclosure, we don't represent Republicans or Democrats or unaffiliated. We represent the electorate. And we just want you to vote and have all this information. And I thank you for all the clarity that we have given to the African diaspora, because it's a large, large continent with a lot of different unique languages and cultures. And at the end of the day, I am a colorblind servant, and I'm here to serve every single voter in Montgomery County.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Z. And thank you, Fatmata, for asking that question. Now, Fatmata raised a few points that I think are very important. And it actually leads to the down ballot candidates at the local level.
Yeah.
That really, to me, are just as important because that is really where things begin. Could you talk on that, Daniel? Voting down ballot candidates, the importance of.
So absolutely. In fact, we have a saying that all politics is local, or
exactly.
In my case, all policy is local.
Yes.
Again, we can talk about not only the school board. The school board is so important because, for example, in Montgomery County, of the $5.6 billion budget, 2.2 to 2.3 billion of the budget goes directly to the school board for them to make decisions, and these decisions affect our kids that are in the school system. It affects in terms of the quality of education that our children have in Montgomery County. I mean, for many years, I used to have 2 kids in Montgomery County public school. One now is in college, the other one is still there. We're talking about the achievement gap, right? That's how they used to call it. And I had a problem with that terminology because I was like, no, my kids can achieve. I know that, I had challenges, but my kids are even smarter than I am, right? So it's an opportunity gap that exists in MCPS. Well, if you go, for example, I'm going to give you a website that is nonpartisan. It's the League of Women Voters, which is vote411.org.
Right.
You are able to basically pull up, based on the address you put, not only the presidential candidates, but you're able to see all the down ballot candidates as well. It's specific to your area. It's specific to your county district. It's specific to your legislative district. And even though school board election is a nonpartisan election, but it's good for you to see the platform of every one of the candidates that are running and what are their priorities.
Right.
Because if their priorities are not aligned with one that you have for your children, then clearly they would not be able to, you won't be able to, petition them and say, hey, I need to make sure that the necessary tools my kids need in order for them to succeed are there. So it's really important that you go and look at the down ballot candidate. And I'm going to just throw it over to Dr. Z for a few minutes. I know probably he has. So Dr. Z, how about down ballot candidates? What do you think?
Yeah, so great question, a great segue. So in Montgomery County, we have 20 unique ballot styles. We have 8 Democratic ballot styles, we have 8 Republican ballot styles, and we have 4 non-affiliated independent ballot styles. What does that mean? I live in Clarksburg, so a lot of the candidates in contests that appear on my ballot in Up County are going to be totally different than Daniel's in District 20 in Down County, Silver Spring. So it's very important that, yes, there are resources. Unfortunately, the Montgomery County Board of Elections, we don't provide resources on the candidates and their position. Yes, the League of Women Voters do publish a nonpartisan resource. Right. This is actually the first year that's going to be published and circulated in Spanish, which is really good. And maybe in the future, I know they've tried it online to do in different languages, especially within the African diaspora. But I also encourage all the organizations and leaders and also the invitees here today to reach out to the Board of Elections. Remember, I unfortunately only speak English and Spanish. I would love to speak French. I took French in high school, and all I remember is zut alors. And that's it. That's all I remember. So, but there's so many wonderful languages that if you would like for the Board of Elections to have, for example, the voter registration application, and Fatmata, we had a good conversation, which initiated this snowball to be here today, because it took me 10 years to get the voter registration application translated into simplified traditional Chinese and Korean. But I could tell you that I was fighting for French and Amharic. And I know after this presidential elections, I will start again to work with the State Board of Elections. And just a quick segue, this is why it's important to fill out your census, because I went with the census numbers to the State Board of Elections. And I said, the reality is, yes, we have 4 of the most diverse cities in the United States: Germantown, Rockville, Gaithersburg, and Silver Spring / White Oak. We recognize that. But the nearsightedness to assume that no one from the African diaspora or Latin America or Europe or Asia are living in Prince George's County or Kent County or Washington County. It's a business proposition to serve all voters. Absolutely. And we all know that Montgomery County is quite expensive to live. And a lot of individuals have moved out of Montgomery County into Prince George's, into Howard, and into Frederick County. And those counties, like Frederick County, has seen close to a 500% increase of, for example, the Hispanic population. Howard County has a large Korean population. Montgomery County has a bursting Ethiopian and Eritrean community. And so these are not pockets. These are the reality of Maryland and the United States. And so independent to your platform, independent on your party affiliation, diversity that exists, and it's been in the fabric of this nation. And the reason why I administer Section 203 of the Voter Rights Act, so those history buffs, the Articles of Confederation, which predates the Constitution, it was kind of the first draft of the U.S. Constitution. When they developed that document, that was actually printed in French and in German. So that document was circulating in English, German, and in French, because there was a group of the founding fathers in Pennsylvania making a lot of noise, wanting their independence, and they were going to declare war on the king. And you had the northern states that predominantly spoke German, Pennsylvania, New Amsterdam, which was New York, etc. And then you had the southern counties that spoke French. Louisiana, if you look at the history, French, Creole, Spanish, English, French, Creole, English, Spanish. It kept on changing ownership. And so the founding fathers said, if we're going to form a militia, and if we're going to succeed, we need the individuals within the 13 colonies to join this fight. But they all weren't speaking the Queen's English. They were speaking German and French. Right. And so even as far as the 1800s, Pennsylvania had a bilingual school system in German and in French, and in German and in English. And if 30% of the children spoke German, they taught the school children German. So this has been in existence in this nation. It's the fabric of America. And please, I implore you, vote your ballot, mail it back in, exercise your right, because as Fatmata and our brother Danielle mentioned, a lot of history has gone before our arrival. I'm a first generation Salvadorian American, and so a lot of history has taken place. And without getting political or partisan, it's the truth. It's history, and civil rights is recent history. And so it's very important that everyone exercises their right and do that. And Maryland has a very progressive franchise. I can't speak on behalf of other states, but Maryland and Montgomery County specifically, we are here to serve, and we owe the gratitude to Fatmata, Sophie, Daniel Karama, and also Afrik, the organization that's putting this together, because without you, there's no way that my lonely voice will communicate this to the electorate.
And thank you so much for that, Dr. Z. And to his point, these communities are not pockets. They are thriving. They are involved. They are engaged. They participate. Therefore, it behooves us all to exercise our franchise and vote and look at the entire ballot and vote and turn it in. Fatmata, you had something to add?
You need to unmute yourself, Fatmata.
Yeah, just a couple of questions for Dr. Z, if you don't mind. Okay, is there any talk of doing mail-in ballot in November?
Oh, my dear, if I could see the future, I would not be working at the Board of Elections. So let's do one election at a time. This lovely gray that I have here is because of those questions. So we don't know yet. We don't know yet, but we'll let you know.
Okay. All right. Another quick question. This is a question. Is there any online delivery of ballots?
Yes. So the web delivery that I mentioned earlier, in case someone dirtied or made a marking on their ballot, if it's close to the June 2nd, we could do a web delivery, but quickly. Keep in mind, you have to print the ballot, you have to pay postage, you have to have the envelope, and you have to print all the necessary paperwork. So this is much, much easier. Take your time, clear your table, clear your mind, vote your ballot, mail it back.
One question. So by what date should people expect to have gotten their ballots before they start kind of going crazy? I haven't gotten my ballot.
Yeah, like I know Sophie got her ballot today. She lives in Montgomery County. I didn't get my ballot. I checked before we went online. So you should be getting it this week. I know that on Saturday, they were introduced to the mail stream, and also some ballots on Monday. Remember, there's millions of voters in Maryland, and what they did was they staged the ballot so not to overwhelm the United States Postal Service with millions of ballots.
Right.
Does Maryland have an inactive voter roll?
So if you miss 2 federal elections, or your sample ballot or a mailing from the Board of Elections comes back, we will inactivate you. But there's a whole series of steps that we need to reaffirm and reconfirm. We do not delete or remove individually inadvertently. But if you've been living under a rock for multiple years, we don't know if you've passed, we don't know if you moved, or frankly, maybe you don't care anymore. And there's a cost involved. So if at any time, remember, you need to keep your voter registration record updated with us. It's a very active process. It's not passive. So when you move to our home or move to a different location, you need to actively tell us. We're not going to, anything from the Board of Elections is not going to be forwarded to your new mailing address. You need to contact us and update your voter registration, whether it's your name because you got married or divorced, your address because you live from up county to down county, or maybe your affiliation, or a combination of. Always contact us, please.
Okay. Before we wrap up very quickly, Daniel, you had something to add?
Yes. So quickly, I invite all to visit the Montgomery County Democratic Central Committee's website, which is mcdcc.org. Again, that website is mcdcc.org. We have many activities that are there. And also, you can also reach out to me because my contact information is on the website. The website again is www.mcdcc.org.
And Fatmata?
And just very quickly, the DLC Continental African. You can send us an email at dlccontinentalafrican@gmail.com. But we're also on Facebook, so you can look us up on Facebook, Diversity Leadership Council, Maryland Democratic Party Diversity Leadership Council, Continental Africans, and like us on Facebook, and we can keep in touch. And we have activities coming up that we're going to be doing, of course, online.
And Dr. Z, do you have a website that you would like to share?
Yes. So our website is 777vote.org, 777vote.org, and our phone number is 240-777-8500. And please mail your ballot back, send it back to us, sign the back of the envelope, and make sure that you mail this to us as soon as possible. Please do not wait. Your voice, your vote.
And another resource, the League of Women Voters, 411, vote411.org, has tons of information for voters also as well. At this time, I would like to extend a heartfelt thank you for all of the useful information that you've shared with the audience today and viewers. Afrique Today live streams and rebroadcasts on Afrique Today TV, Facebook, YouTube, and our website, afriquetoday.com. Thank you for watching. Thank you for coming. You all have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Do you want to promote your business? Do you want to talk about your nonprofit organization? Do you want to talk about your culture? Introducing the online web TV, Afrique Today. Fogham. You can watch us live at the same time on 4 platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and using the Afrique Today app. Download our app today for Android or Apple. Promote your business today. For more information,